Flashbacks. Wife and I met at work and began seeing one another as she was coming out of a 10-year relationship with a high school boyfriend. Initially supposed to be casual for both of us, we fell for one another. At the same time, we began seeing one another. She had a slight interest in another co-worker, who was also interested in her. Once we got engaged, he would post on his blog about the woman he had feelings for and the mistake she was making in getting married, etc. It was the subject of our first real fight. I began referring to him as he who shall not be named, or O for short. Over the years, they continued to keep occasional communication. Shortly after our marriage and the birth of our child, she lost her job, and, when all was said and done, was out of work for the better part of 4 years. She is bipolar, and that long stretch of unemployment certainly did not help the depression side of that equation. Our sex life suffered, and as she withdrew from me, I unintentionally found myself withdrawing from her. Our sex life dwindled to practical non-existence. In the past few years, things have improved a bit, but we've also had setbacks. I'll renew my focus on her, realizing I'm somewhat withdrawn, but, being a creature of habit, will fall back into those habits when things seem to smooth over, spending time playing computer games, reading, etc. She became good friends with a woman I worked with, an open lesbian. I know for a fact that my wife developed a crush on this friend. They would text constantly, which became a bone of contention between us, as I felt that she would much rather have conversations with this friend than with me. I grew to hate the sound of her text alert. I would tell her how I felt about it, but ultimately, it didn't change. Almost 2.5 years ago, after nearly 7 years of marriage, we came home from a birthday movie for me to a message on our answering machine. It was to me, saying, "This is for W's husband. This is other man's STBXW. I just thought you'd like to know that they've been meeting and screwing around behind your back since before the two of you got married. He has a habit of sleeping with other people's wives." Wife said that it wasn't true, that she hadn't even talked to him in years, and his wife must have found her number in his phone or something, and concluded he was sleeping with her, too. Given their history, she lay down to take a nap, but my mind couldn't stop churning. Firstly, the phone number that she'd called was unlisted, and we'd only had it for about 4 months. Something just wasn't adding up. While she napped, I checked our cell phone bill, and there were numerous text exchanges with one particular number, and many 30-plus minute phone calls during the time she'd be driving home from work. I called the number, and just got the default, automatic voicemail message. My phone rang, and, stupid me, I let it go to voicemail, where my outgoing message is personalized. While we were talking about it later, and she was claiming not to remember who the number was for, she got a text from that number that said, "He called today." I did some more digging over the next day or two, including checking her email accounts, and discovered that the number belonged to OM. I confronted her about it, told her that I knew the number belonged to him. She said that she didn't tell me she was speaking to him again because she knew how much I disliked him, that he offered a male perspective on what was going on between us. With me there, she called his number, got his voicemail, and left a message that continuing to talk with him was not worth the drama that went with it, and that she was cutting all ties. She then deleted his contact info. I continued to watch our cell phone account, and saw that, indeed, there were no more calls or texts to her from his number. After a few months, I stopped checking. Things were a bit better between us, but not back to 100%. A little over a year later, just over a year ago, we got new phones, and in syncing them with the computer, I inadvertently ended up with both her contact list and mine in my phone. As I went through deleting contacts that I had no use for, I found one marked with just an initial, OM's first initial. Checking the number, I saw that it was his. She again feigned ignorance. I later checked the cell records and saw that the calls and texts had resumed a month or two earlier. I again confronted her about it, and she said that he'd contacted her, asked if it was okay to add her as a friend on Facebook, and they began talking again. Again, sounding bored, male perspective, blah blah blah. This time refused to break contact with him. So, I stepped up my keeping an eye on the cell records, did my best to account for any odd time she might be keeping, and occasionally checked her texts. From reading occasional texts to her other sounding board, our lesbian friend, she was feeling bored, tied down, not sure if she was married for the right reasons, but nothing to indicate that the situation with OM had gone beyond what I now know to be an emotional affair. For that matter, I also consider her relationship with the lesbian friend to be an E, and her partner agrees with me. However, in looking back with 20/20 hindsight, damage was done. Around that time, I began to notice that I developed some ED. I've since been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which can certainly affect that, and the doctor has also determined a biological cause. But given the timing, I'm sure that my feelings of our relationship not being as important as hers with OM were a factor. This past summer, she got a job where I work. During her first week of training, I got the same sort of vibe from one of her fellow new hires, Aka the idiot, that I always got from OM. He had no vehicle. So she began giving him rides home from work. At home, she'd talk about how, on the rides to his house, he would tell her about his rocky marriage, his crazy wife, etc. Around that same time, a couple that were very close to begin to experience problems that were similar to our own. I panicked a bit one night, and while she was asleep, checked her texts. There was a thread between her and the idiot discussing the ways they like to have sex, whether or not he should wear a condom, how long he can last, etc. It made me mad, but at the same time, she's always enjoyed trying to one-up people with shock talk. So, I simply decided to keep an eye on messages, see if things started to reach the danger zone. In the meantime, even in the weeks before starting the new job and meeting him, our relationship began to improve. Having left her previous job that she hated seemed to have lifted a burden from her shoulders, and she seemed much more content. Our physical life began to improve. Reading the texts between her and our lesbian friend, I learned that she still has a crush on her, and that she was also attracted to the idiot. She did, however, say in so many words that she did not plan for anything to happen between them, because she didn't want to cheat on me. I took that as a good sign, until one Friday morning, ironically after we'd talked about how I disliked OM and the idiot for the same reasons that they both wanted in my wife's pants. She was in the shower, and I was checking her messages. She told our friend that she'd done something stupid. The idiot, he has a side business as a photographer, and on their way home a week earlier, he had her take him to a park so he could show her where he takes some of his pictures. Why didn't he just use the old cliche about showing her some of his etchings? She continued to provide some details. When she came out of the shower, she could tell something was wrong and asked what it was. I told her that I did something I wasn't proud of and was pissed off as a result. I checked her messages. She knew then exactly what had pissed me off. We went to work, and needless to say, the day was strained. I told her that I might find someplace else to stay that night. I did end up going home, and we talked late into the night, agreeing to work on our marriage. She told the idiot at work that day that they had nothing to say to one another that was not work-related. His only concern was that I would be mad enough to tell his wife. From taking him home, my wife knew her name and where they lived. We sent her a message through Facebook telling her everything. Surprisingly, she took it very well and let us know it wasn't the first time he'd cheated on her, but it would be the last. She was divorcing him. Clearly, she wasn't crazy. He just used that as part of his pickup routine. We very quickly made tremendous progress, although we weren't quite ready to be physically intimate just yet. 2 weeks later, I had to leave town for business. One night I was gone. She told me she was going out to eat with friends she hadn't seen in a while. Feeling paranoid, I checked our cell records and saw messages that day from a number I didn't recognize. And from OM that night, over the phone, we had a long fight about it, and I reminded her that the wounds were still fresh. It was going to take time for trust to be rebuilt, and that OM was always going to be a sore spot. At that moment in time in particular, given the circumstances, I was, and still am, convinced that his perspective at the time was, "You finally cheated on him, but it was with some guy you barely knew. I've been patient. It's my turn." She countered that, with our lesbian friend having broken contact with her because she'd cheated on me and lied to the friend about some of the details. To paint it herself in a slightly better light, she really had no one at all with which to talk about what we were going through. Probably a stupid move on my part, but I told her I wasn't going to be the villain and force her to break contact with other man, if that was truly the case. But that once we were on more solid ground again, I most definitely would. Things have continued to improve between us. We both agree that we're putting more effort into our marriage and have both agreed to be more forthcoming if something is bothering us. Prevent problems and concerns, rather than letting them grow. Communication between her and OM slowed to a crawl, then seemed to stop until she was homesick one day a few weeks ago, and they had a 72-text conversation. Since then, however, no texts or calls between them. And here's where we get to the question of the subject line. Finally, I hear you all say, although we're in a much better place. I will occasionally get flashes of irrational concern or of the mental images of her and the idiot that I formed from the details that I know of their one physical encounter. They seem to be more frequent with another work trip looming next week. Are flashbacks like this to be expected? If so, I know it's somewhat pointless to ask how long they tend to last, as everyone is different. I'm glad we've been able to continue working through this and have no doubt that our marriage is going to endure. But I sometimes just can't shake these nagging feelings of concern and paranoia. Comments. Your wife is a serial cheater, and you, my friend, are a doormat. You don't want to be the villain, so you let her continue talking to her old boyfriend. Why don't you just drop her off at his house and wait outside? I am sure she would greatly appreciate your thoughtfulness. It sounds like you have about as much respect for yourself as your wife does. You both need some serious counseling. Your wife continues to disrespect you by having relationships with other men in her life that are coming between the two of you. This is not acceptable. I really don't think she knows how to be married and have boundaries within that marriage. Why does she continue to do this? I would stop it now and tell her you have had enough. Make her decide this life for you and then make sure she knows you are serious. If you don't make her decide, she will never quit. If she continues, move on and find someone else that doesn't want other men in her life while she is with you. I don't think this woman deserves you. Half a year later, it's like I can see a few impending triggers on the horizon. My birthday is set, and last year, a mere 6 days after my birthday, my wife carried her very inappropriate conversations with a new co-worker to the physical level. I found out about 2 weeks later, on July 2nd. Since that time, whenever I think back to the surprise birthday dinner she organized for me last year, the images of that supposedly great evening with friends have what's like a DVD commentary track playing over it, reminding me that, during that same time, she was having sexual conversations with him and was less than a week away from crossing over that next line. Being the weekend of D-Day, the 4th of July weekend wasn't all that fun, either. Since that time, we've begun reconciling and made progress. We've also had some setbacks, some major ones, at that nearly torpedoed the reconciliation and marriage. But things are improving again, helped greatly by our joint research and conclusion that she is a sex love addict and her seeking help and support for her addiction. This year, as my birthday approaches, it feels like it could be a trigger for me. Nothing major is planned. A night out for dinner and entertainment with a few close friends. I'm concerned that as we approach the anniversary of her physical affair and D-Day following shortly after, that whole couple of weeks is going to come flooding back to me like a kick to the head and gut. I've told her that it feels like I might trigger in the next few weeks, and she's prepared for it. I'd hoped that seeing them potentially coming would help lessen their impact, but instead, as my birthday draws closer, it's like it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's less the events of tomorrow night that have me concerned with triggering. It's the time frame of the next few weeks in and of itself. When my triggers hit, it tends to not be when I'm with a group, so I'll probably be fine while we're out. Once we're home, though, it could be a different story. It's just an odd feeling to sort of see them coming, instead of being blindsided by them. Not sure if it's a better feeling or worse, but certainly different. A month later, wife and I have been making stellar progress towards our after a false start. But being that both of us plus OM work together, it can be a challenge sometimes. She's maintaining NC, but some mornings, like this morning, it's tough to not just pound him into hamburger. Wife and I walked into the weekly department meeting to hear him whining and moaning about how he goes so long without hearing from the woman he's so deeply in love with, who's in the military and stationed halfway across the country, how he's getting mixed signals from her and is trying to get an answer as to what exactly they are. Friends with benefits, a couple. Hearing him whine about how in love he's been with her for 4 months made me want to leap across the table, grab him by the throat, and scream, "If you've been so crazy about her for 4 months, why the duck was you trying to arrange a parking lot rendezvous with my wife 3 months ago? Dude, you're a snake. You have no conscience. You have no heart for her to break. I only wish I had some way to track down the other woman, so I could fill her in on what kind of snake has set his sights on her. And fortunately, I don't have the authority to fire him. For better or for worse, this morning was an anomaly. Normally, if he speaks around me, he never speaks to me. It's an attempt to show everyone how much smarter and better than them he is. A plan which backfires, without fail. I have been trying to see if I can get some idea to narrow down how to contact her. As it is, I've gotten his, now ex-wife to divorce him after exposing the physical affair with my wife last year. I wouldn't hesitate to wipe out this new love for him trying to get back with my wife. I'm lucky in that I'm only in a position that I have to see him at the Friday meetings. Most days, I don't see him at all. Part of my position is to answer questions for the people in his group. If he has questions, he doesn't ask me. When faced with no other option than to ask me or make something up, he makes something up. I'd be lying, though, if I said that I don't imagine messing up his vehicle every evening on the way out. Days later, wife's having a rough day today. As we prepare for a group of new hires to join us, seating has been rearranged. The way we do it is to place the new hires where they're surrounded by experienced employees or adjacent to supervisors. Works pretty well. OM has already caused a break in that pattern. Because of the poor job he does, he has not been moved from the hot seat he was moved to shortly after coming out of training. He's next to a supervisor and directly across the aisle from his manager. Here's where the W's difficulty comes in. Picture our area of the building like this. A bunch of cubicles put together in such a way that there are 3 main aisles, with cross aisles at either end. The fridge is on aisle 1, my group is at the back of aisle 2, and OM's hot seat is at the front of aisle 3. We used to be at the front of aisle 1. If other man had to come to our group for a question or head to the fridge, he would go from the front of aisle 3, then down aisle 2 to get to my group, or down 2 and up 1 to get to the fridge, thus avoiding W's desk. She's been moved to the middle of aisle 3, and she says that it appears that he's decided to alter his route, going down 3 to the back in order to get to my group or the fridge. There may be nothing to it, but being in closer proximity, with him apparently making a point of passing by her desk and having to hear his bleeding crap all day, is already taxing her patience. 2 months later, just got some decent news. Starting Monday, other man will be working from home. W and I won't have to see or hear him, making for far fewer triggers for either of us. Hopefully, one day soon, we'll hear he doesn't work here anymore, at all. I won't lie, sometimes it's difficult. A month or so ago, W asked me to stop making my snarky comments and observations about his actions at work, not because she was defending him, but because those comments ramped her guilt for shoving his existence into our lives and the pain she caused me in doing so. Fortunately, I have some good friends who know the story who are fine with me texting those comments and observations if I absolutely must share them with someone. Like last night, near the end of the evening, he started randomly snapping pictures of people. One of the women asked him, "Other man, what's wrong with you?" I was so very tempted to pipe up and say, "Do you want the whole list, or just the top 40? And now, as of last Friday, he's been pulled back into the office due to attendance and performance issues. Really? How do you have attendance issues when your commute to work consists of getting out of bed and walking into another room? If that much. So far, we're doing okay. It helped that I got to toss him under a bus yesterday. We have a pretty strict no personal computers, tablets policy, as well as a strict internet use policy. Last night, he had an iPad out, surfing cheesecake and women pictures. As the supervisor on duty, I emailed his manager about it, looking forward to seeing what happens. A little earlier, he had the iPad out again, in the middle of the day, with management around, entitled much, albeit it didn't look like it was blatantly inappropriate content this time. I let his manager know, but it was put away by the time the manager got to his desk. A few minutes later, though, HR came by so I could tell them what I saw last night. Thinking about fixing some popcorn and watching the show, guess who walked out about an hour ago. It did indeed feel very good. He got himself fired. I just made sure his manager had the pertinent information. Closing in fast on 2 years since D-Day and having recently passed 1 year since True R began, I find myself a bit conflicted. Not about whether or not R seems to be going well, but about how best to process and exercise my thoughts and feelings about the whole thing, from the start to now, and anything that might come. Sure, I've got friends, but there are times that I think seeing new tales of infidelity day in and day out just keeps me reliving my own pain and hindering the healing process. Plus, as someone who likes to fancy himself something of a storyteller, I think there's something to be said for the whole narrative to be in one place. A year later, wife has been in confirmed NC with the other man of an extended emotional affair for about 2 years. I'm currently out of town for work, and this morning, she texts me to let me know that the OM's girlfriend called from his phone, his number deleted. So no name when it rang through. And she was expecting a call. His GF called because she thinks he's fooling around on her. And given history, my wife was her primary suspect. Wife spent 10 to 20 minutes telling her that they haven't been in contact for 2 years. And he probably is fooling around on the GF. Just not with her. She wanted me to be aware, in the event I checked phone records. Since I, on the other hand, still have his number in my phone, I'm sorely tempted to text him myself and thank him for continuing to interfere with our R through his continued inability to keep it to himself. I know it's not the wisest idea, but is tempting. Meanwhile, my wife has agreed that it's worth investing the $5 per line to enable us to block numbers, since it reappeared after so long. And yes, I'll be keeping an eye out for any new, out-of-the-blue numbers on the phone bill. Wife lost her job a couple of weeks ago. Her job search is starting to bear fruit. She had 2 interviews today and got a call on another lead. First interview went well. She seems to have a good feeling about the place. Distance is farther than ideal, and the money's definitely not great, but she really likes it. Second interview also went well. Much closer to home, much better pay. Schedule could be bad, and it's in a field she'd prefer to get out of. Then, definitely a tipping point. Got a text from her that, if job number 2 offers her the job, she's declining, even if no other offers are on the table. Turns out, thanks to intel from a friend of hers who knows the score, that job number 2 is with the company that the former OM ended up at after I got him fired from here. Good call on her part. She said that if there's even the slimmest possibility that he still works there, that job isn't even a consideration. Update. Beginning of the end was this summer. Watching couples and another we know start to fall apart. I literally spelled out in black and white what was wrong, what I felt was missing, and that something needed to change. Her only response was, "I don't know what to say." Since that time in August, no forward movement, no attempts to correct, not even any further verbal response to what I'd told her. So, I finally made my peace with the idea that we're done, beyond the point of repair, as it seems she's only motivated to actually work on us if she's in danger of losing her safety net. I'm waiting till January for much the same reason. This is the first holiday season our son and I will be spending since losing my mom. And it's a tough one on us. Considering his birthday is shortly after Christmas, that's going to be tough, too. So, I don't want to add to that. I choose to carry the weight of knowing by myself. I still have no proof went beyond emotional affair. Just a gut feeling. The one that was most certainly a physical affair. White elephant co-worker. I saw communication a few months later that, given the wording, indicated that it continued past the initial encounter that was caught almost immediately, probably somewhat blindsided. A couple of weeks ago, I had a last-minute dinner after work with my oldest friend, with everything weighing on me. I just needed to say some things out loud. He'd been made aware a few weeks earlier about my intention to Dee when I got home from dinner, and she asked why I'd met with him. I told her the truth, that it had been 3 months at that point since I'd spelled out what was wrong and missing, and she'd yet to respond in word or action, that it felt as if she'd checked out, that I'd withdrawn, too. Asked if she realized how long it had been since I'd tried to initiate anything with her. She hadn't, and that, basically, with so much going on this year. Passing of my mother. Stepdad being a jerk in the aftermath, 2 couples we know well facing disintegrating 10-plus year relationships, and our own growing distance. I'm ready for the year to be over. Since then, she started putting on a big show of trying to act affectionate and attentive, but nerves of making such a big change aside. It's just too little, too late. Couple months later, my wife stopped on her way home from work and got me a card and a small gift. I didn't get her anything. I've never been a huge fan of Valentine's Day to begin with, but she made no effort to start anything physical. And she certainly shouldn't have expected me to, given that my response to her trying to explain away the latest rejection was, "I'm just not going to try anymore." In addition to waiting out a situation with my late mother's house that will either give me somewhere to go or the money to do so with. My wife's actions of burying her head in the sand, again, regarding a student loan resulted in about 85% of our tax refund being withheld. I'd planned on using it for lawyer fees, etc., but there's not enough left from it to do so. Ironically, while I've been considering just toughing it out for 5 more years till our son's out of school. Long story short, we want to keep him in that chain of schools. And it would be tough for me to afford the area on my own, and she definitely can't. That tax situation drove me back to the point of being ready to go, but financially prevents me from doing so. I think this is a story where the marriage is just slowly fading after the affair, and nothing can really stop it. Story 2. So, I should start with some general info. My husband and I have been married for 3 years after dating for 1.5 years. We have a 29-month-old together. About a year ago I started to lose that loving feeling. Well, if I was really honest with you, I never truly had that passion for him. We started dating as rebound partners and then he grew on me. He has been there for me through all my hardships, has supported me and has been my best friend. I got pregnant after 1 year and we decided to get married. Now I look back and really wish I hadn't. The first year of our marriage was really rough. He talked down to me and cut me off of all my friends. I think he thought I should change who I was because of my new title as wife. I let him get away from this behavior and began to resent him. Finally, after our daughter was a few months old, I told him he was pushing me away through his verbal abuse, but it didn't change much. He would cry, say he was sorry, and a month later he would be back to demeaning me. About 1 year ago, 2 years into marriage and with a 1-year-old, I finally told myself it was enough. I did not want my daughter to grow up watching the way he treated me and think it was okay for a man to act that way towards a woman. I told my hubby it was either change or I was going to leave. I wanted it to work for my daughter's sake but also could not go on living that way. Well, he finally woke up and saw I was serious and the progress began. While my hubby has changed dramatically, I realized my feelings for him have not. I thought if he would change, I would love him again, but sadly I do not. I don't want to believe the damage is done, but I think he has put me through so much and I can't get it back. So, you're probably asking yourself why I would want to be with him and expect to love him passionately when it was never there to begin with. Well, I don't want to separate for the sake of my daughter who adores him. I want and wish and pray that I can love him, but it's not there. He is now a good guy and treats me so well, but I can't feel it for him. I tried faking it, not thinking about it and praying, but still nothing. So, a few weeks ago I told him the truth. I told him I don't love him like that and only as a best friend. Of course, he was devastated. He wants us to work, and for my daughter's sake I agreed to marriage counseling. We still live together and every day I see the pain in his eyes. He is sad, angry and confused, which I expected. One minute he is trying to win me over and the next he is calling me a cold-hearted bee and telling me to leave. I don't know how much I can take of this. I thought honesty was the best policy, but now seriously doubt it. I have always thought love is what relationships are about. I believe that everyone should be truly and deeply loved. I would feel bad sitting next to him while he told me he loved me and not feel it for him. Was I wrong? Should I have just sucked it up? Am I being selfish? I thought I was being selfish by not telling him and now think I am selfish for telling him. Can someone ever truly bounce back from this? Every argument since I told him he has thrown this in my face somehow. Is anyone ever always in love with their partner and this is just someone in a half-year rut? So, we are now heading to counseling, but to be honest, I don't think it will work. I can't see myself with him and it devastates me because I wanted this to work for the sake of my family. Then on the other hand, don't I deserve to be happy and truly love someone? I am so confused. A friend and I were talking the other day and she asked me 2 questions and wanted me to respond yes or no. She asked me if I loved him. I said no. She asked me if I think we will be together in 5 years. I said no. She told me that's my answer and I should leave. Better to leave now than to draw out the inevitable and make it that much harder in the future. I just don't know why I can't and insist on holding on to something that isn't there. I secretly wished my hubby would have made me leave because I can't do it on my own. I start counseling tomorrow. We are going in for a joint session and then we will start on our individual. I feel like I need it in order to sort my own issues out. I suggested counseling a year ago and he would only go to 2 sessions and then he quit. I have tried being more affectionate to him and even tried to convince myself that I love him and still felt nothing. I have tried talking to him but all he did was become critical. I tried date nights every other week. I have taken 2 vacations with him in efforts to spark up a romance. I have read books, talked to my parents, who also counsel people. I have tried. Maybe not to your standards, but I have. I want to love him but I simply don't and have only recently come to terms with that and accepted it. We have talked about divorce and separation and at times he seems to be for it but then quickly changes his mind. He tells me he wants to be with me but the hurt I have put him through is more than he can bear. However, the thought of losing me altogether is devastating to him. He told me he doesn't know how much more he can deal with it. I get mixed signals and sometimes thinks he does want out to. I guess it's whoever lets go first. I don't think he ever would no matter how much I hurt him. He even thought at first another man was in this equation and was panicking enough to say that if there was, he still would try to work it out. If it were to ever end, it will be because of me. While my hubby treated me poorly, I am to blame too. I never really loved him from the beginning so I shouldn't have even continued the relationship, but I did. I have lied about my feelings from the start. He still doesn't know this. I can't crush him like that. I am an indecisive person in nature. It takes me a long time to make a choice. I also like the idea of things but not so much the realities, which often get me into sticky situations such as this one, like the idea of marriage and a family. But I can tell you one thing, once I have made up my mind, however long that may take, it's made up for good. I still don't know what it will be or when, but once I truly commit to either choice, there will be no turning back. I have fantasized about running off. I have fantasized about moving away. I already have the finances planned out. He can't afford to keep our home, but I can. I already have our daughter's schedule laid out as well. If he were to leave today, he would be startled by how I have everything already laid out. I have the next 2 years planned out in my head. The other day he asked me where I see myself in 5 years and I told him. He was pretty upset my plans didn't include him. My question is, do you think sometimes separation is necessary in order to start rebuilding the relationship? I want to make it work because we have a daughter together, but all I am doing right now and have been since last year is going through the motion. He is aware of this and is devastated. He is angry and upset. He wants me to fall back in love with him as though it were a light switch. I am brutally honest with him, which I know is harsh. And he hasn't been able to deal with it. While I know he has a right to be upset, it is making our situation worse. We can't stop arguing since the revelation. I think I want to be with him, like I said, have resentment, and we are going to counseling. She suggested separation to clear our heads. I just don't know if either can go through with this. We have a daughter who adores him and he is such a great dad. Just hasn't been nearly a good husband. But I must say he is trying. At least I would like to say so. So today on Valentine's Day, my hubby told me he wants to take some money and find a place to stay. He said he will be filing for divorce in a year. When he told me that, I was shocked. I walked out of the room not saying anything. He then came up to me, said he was sorry and said he really doesn't want to leave but can't take the hurt anymore. Then for the rest of the day he texts me saying he was sorry and doesn't want to leave. Can you say mixed signals? Well, we didn't have time to talk tonight. Work, but I think I am going to sit with him tomorrow and tell him maybe we should separate. I think deep down he wants it. Or he is playing these games to make me beg him to stay, which I won't do. So he feels wanted. Who knows? But after this weekend, which was another one spent arguing, I think it's time to separate. I am going to tell him not divorce but separate. Maybe this can still be saved. I just need to get the courage now. Couple days later. Well, I did it. I asked for a separation and I am heartbroken. We both are. On one hand I am relieved and on the other I am so sad. Much of a choice. He says I should have waited a bit longer for him to show me he will change, but honestly, I have grown jaded. I am tired of all the apologies. I am tired of not feeling comfortable in my own home. I am tired of hearing one minute he wants to leave and the next he wants to stay. I am tired of him saying hurtful things when he is angry. I am exhausted. I have to say I am mourning though. I am sad for our relationship. I never thought this would happen. I wanted to have more babies with him. I wanted us to build another home together. I wanted us to always be there for our baby. I am upset for her. He is a great dad. I am also second-guessing this whole situation. What if I never find anyone like him? I know he hasn't treated me the best, but it could have been worse. I never doubted that he wouldn't be there for me whenever I called. He is the only person who has been there for me unconditionally. That's not something that comes easily. Hopefully this separation will clear my head and allow me to think straight. My comment. Some of you tried separation before divorce. What were your results? Is there any chance of getting back together?